Hi there, and thanks once again for tuning into the Explaining History YouTube channel. Now, if you're watching this, the chances are you're probably studying something to do with the French Revolution. And I'm creating these videos to be a very, very quick, very simple guide to some of its causes. Now, let's dive into the first one I want to talk about, the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was not one thing, but a long-term process that happened between the mid-17th to the mid-18th centuries in Europe. And what is it? Well, it's a complex thing for us to sum up, but it's what we would call intellectual change, i.e., the way in which large numbers of educated people across Europe began to change their thoughts about the nature of the world. They began to consider things in terms of science, rationality, secularism, so they were less inclined to come to religious conclusions about things. They embraced new principles of law, mathematics, economics, ways of thinking about history and politics, and they started to think that the ways in which society was ordered needed to develop and evolve. And in fact, the way in which societies across Europe were ordered should be more rational, more based around the principles of modern administration and science and law and economics, and that not necessarily should there be mass democracy, i.e. all people having the vote and having a choice, because a great many of the thinkers of the Enlightenment didn't have a great deal of respect for the intellectual capabilities of ordinary people, by and large because they would have been uneducated and illiterate. But they thought that the educated classes that were developing as a result of trade and as a result of mercantile activity, so banking, money lending, insurance and that kind of thing, which was developing in all European capitals, these were the kinds of people that should really be involved in government. And these are exactly the kinds of people that are almost exclusively excluded from the runnings of the French state in the 18th century. The aristocracy in France during the 18th century are those that generally tend to have the greatest influence in the running of affairs, and the new developing, what would be they'd be later called in the 19th century, the newly developing bourgeoisie, the middle class, they have very little influence. So that's our first long-term cause of the French Revolution, the Enlightenment. And the Enlightenment is possible because of two things: a rise in literacy across Europe and a rise in a development of printing. So it's possible to create more books for more people to read, and so more ideas are circulating around at a faster pace than ever before, and more people are able to think about the world in a different way. And the book that most people would have read in the centuries beforehand, if they'd have read anything at all, would probably have been the Bible, which only allows for a certain number of ways of interpreting the world, mainly religious ones. So the Enlightenment has a huge effect, and the leading thinkers of the Enlightenment, people such as Rousseau, were referred to as the philosophes, and the philosophes themselves are blamed by Louis XVI. He says things like, well, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in. But in the next video, we'll look at precisely why it was debt that left Louis XVI with a very unpleasant legacy with which to deal with, for which he had only particularly bad answers. Anyway, if you find this useful and you find this handy, subscribe. There are more videos on the way, and I'll keep putting these out every day. And you can follow us or visit our website, www.explaininghistory.com. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.